Production underwriting for Ruckus has been made possible in part by the generous contributions from Fred and Lou Hartwig and from viewers like you. Thank you.
I began, but good evening. Welcome to Ruckus, our weekly food for thought fight over the news of the day and the trends of the times. I'm Mike Shannon, joined by the Ruckettes, editorial writer Yael Abouhaka, Urban League CEO Gwen Grant, media consultant Mary O'Halloran, and making his first visit to the program, John Landsberg of Bottom Line Communications, home of the popular website bottomlinecom.com. Good luck, John. For a program that talks a lot about politics, it is never too early to talk about the next election, even if it is 2 years away. We're helped by Yale's recent column focused on the re-election chances of Kansas City Mayor Sly James. The chances are good right now, says Yale, but then he adds the two-word reminder that incumbent Kansas City politicians never want to hear: Mark Funkhauser. James has notched several achievements in the first half of his first term, but there are challenges remaining. So what are some of the major ones?
Oh, I mean, really, I was talking to a couple people about this week, is KCI. You know, he's going to basically have to tackle what's going to happen at KCI in the next couple of years, especially if the aviation department is going to come begging for money from Kansas City taxpayers. And right now, just, based on, all the negative reaction that single terminal plan has received, you'd kind of say it's an uphill fight.
And we're going to talk about that on the program about the public relations.
You have to remember that he's going to be promoting issues that maybe aren't that popular. But you could also certainly quickly look at, well, hell, last year he got a half-cent sales tax approved. And those, getting the sales tax approved in a time like this is pretty difficult. I think the other thing, of course, and you can't necessarily mention every column, but is the unexpected.
Yeah.
What's going to be the unexpected? I mean, Mark Funkhauser's regime was unexpected when somebody he appoints to the park board gets in the news every day for doing something stupid. Well, and that was just kind of like the beginning of the end, and the wife and all that stuff. Well, James doesn't have that problem. He has his son and legal problems, but that's not his political problem. I think you'll have to wait and see if there's a political problem for him. As I said in the column right now, he's, just like Kay Barnes was during her term, he is the number 1, 2, and 3 political force at City Hall right now. There's really nobody close.
So, John, let me ask you, what about news coverage? How about the way James has been treated by the Kansas City media?
I think the Kansas City news media loves him. And it's completely changed from Mark Funkhauser, obviously. But a lot of it, from a PR standpoint, I'd love to have a client like Sly James. I mean, the man never met a TV camera he didn't like. And I'm all for that. And, with recently, what was it, the JJ's explosion followed by a snowstorm, that man was on 24/7. CNN wasn't on as long as Sly James. And I think he did a terrific job. And he calms people. He speaks well. I mean, even he's doing a press conference and a guy jumps up, his possible opponent. If he's lucky, that'll be his possible opponent.
Yeah, right.
And he didn't even break a sweat. It was just like, okay, haul him away. Okay, let me just continue.
Maybe he'll call you after tonight's
Exactly.
program.
That's what I'm hoping.
Gwen, do you hear any names, serious people?
No.
Duron Black is who John's talking about.
No. And I can't imagine who would step up to oppose Mayor James at this point. And, to Yale's point about the airport being a potential issue for him, I think if there's anybody you want out in front of that issue, it would be Sly James.
Right. There's several people you don't want in front of that issue, as we discussed before.
I think it bears repeating, and I agree with you, Gwen, that Kansas City has had great mayors. We're accustomed. The Mark Funkhauser was an aberration. I mean, and one that we will want to refer to for years to come.
But Mary, he was much admired and respected as he went into the office. And his years as auditor, people said he was one of the top professionals in the country. He won Outstanding Administrator of the Year awards. I mean, he was a competent guy who just had trouble with the political process.
Competency only takes you so far, and competent at what? He never knew anything about politics. Here's what's great about Sly James, in addition to many other things, is that he is confident as a human being in the job. It's clear that he loves the job, that he's an excellent communicator. But I would have to give him a less than A+ on one media event. And Danny Roeder, don't get upset with me, but I did not like his response at the night
Right.
of the JJ explosion. Thank
Right.
you, Yale.
Yeah.
I think that he was wonderful on national television, John, as you mentioned. He represented the city so well. But in that moment, when newspaper reporters of the likes of Lynn Horsley and the really good ones, are standing there saying, okay, Mayor, we just want to ask some questions, he got defensive. And he really did equate reporters asking questions with playing the blame game, and I think it was a misstep. It's not the blame game. That's what people deserve when a tragedy happens, as we saw in Boston.
He does get defensive at times.
Oh,
does he
yeah.
not?
I mean, the stories you hear, of course, he has this fiery temper behind the scenes, and you're never going to see it in public. But you saw a little bit of it, exactly what you're talking about. One of the quick thing is that, you also have to have accomplishments in office, and certainly he's had some. But I'm still waiting for, and I'll continue to mention it, he had this group that looked at pensions. It's a year and a half later, not done. He has a group that Gwen's sitting on for local control police, obviously just started, but in October of this year and certainly next year, we need to get that done. So there are markers he's put out there for stuff I'm going to get done that's not done yet.
All right, we talked a lot last week and a little bit thus far this week about KCI. I got a note from a first-time Ruckus watcher who said the discussion last week helped him make up his mind. He's now opposed to changing the airport from 3 terminals to 1. Apparently, he is not alone in that opposition. Still, the City Council has moved ahead with plans to authorize further study. The city's aviation director says the change is inevitable. But how does he turn public opinion around, change people's minds about changing KCI? Apparently, the city leadership thinks one way, not surprisingly, is to spend money. $117,000 for a PR firm to sell the concept. But Mary, won't this be kind of a hard sell, a hard sale to make?
Yes, that's why they hired a company for $117,000. Mike, you just answered your own question. First of all, I think you said something about, do they have PR people in City Hall? No, they used to. There was a time when there were a considerable number of very talented public relations people, but the cutbacks have taken a toll. And so here comes these major events, and you need to have public relations people who will help these miserably uncommunicative people who are currently kind of trying to promote this new airport thing. So the question arises, what's good PR? Why do you do this? Well, they've hired Global Prairie, Ann St. Peter is well known around this town and respected. But the idea here is if people of the city get a honest, fact-based, pre-PR campaign. Every campaign to pass something is a political campaign like any other. But they need to do some work up front. I mean, when you watch Mike Mahoney chasing Russ Johnson through City Hall, I mean, what worse? Secondly, Mark Van Loo, as Yale mentioned last week, I mean, really needs help.
The aviation director.
The aviation director. So have there been deals struck to get this thing as far as it is? Troy Schulte said, no, there aren't any deals struck.
Yeah. Well,
but explain that to the people.
Give me a little bit of an idea about what a PR firm will do to promote acceptance of the one terminal concept. Will they have meetings for the public?
Yes.
Well, I think the first thing they will do is assess the damage that has been done to this idea by people who are not skilled at communicating with the public. This is a democracy, and so you have to tell people the truth. And if they try to do propaganda, it won't work. You've got to educate people about what you think the facts are. Now, Mayor, I hope the mayor doesn't go any further with this emotion versus facts thing. The attachment that people have to that airport is not entirely based on emotion. It's based on experience. And the experience they have with their clients, their families, in a functioning facility that they just love.
John, if you got $117,000 to make this happen, you wouldn't turn down the money, would you?
No.
You take on the
I'm
project.
really all for hiring PR firms to turn these issues
What kinds
around.
of things might a PR firm do on behalf of this idea?
They're going to do some focus groups, probably, a little bit of focus groups. Then they're going to try to figure out, okay, Yale, on last week's show, we agreed who shouldn't be the spokesperson. So we're either going to media train somebody new that's going to be the front person for this. and try to get that person out in front of the news media. I do agree with Mary. It's an emotional issue.
Okay.
You know, you can talk about, well, we'll get more flights in, but I think a lot of people look on our airport as, I can park, get to my gate in 15 minutes. Now, I don't care if flights are coming in from Canada or Japan, but for me, it really works well. And so that's a tough issue to try to say, well, we want a single terminal.
So they're over here trying to play on our emotions
Yes.
as voters, but you're there at the Star trying to get at the facts beyond the emotions.
Yeah, but I think, and I've said this, and I was talking to people today because I'm working probably on a column for next week or so, but I'm open to the single terminal, definitely, and I just want some more facts about it, and let's get that. But I understand the emotional issue. Yes, there has to be somebody new leading it. It's going to be Mayor James. I mean, we can't have Russ Johnson do it, can't have Mark Van Lowe do it, and quite frankly, we can't have the PR firm do it. Now, you know, I mean, Joe McBride is the PR person for KCI, a very good one.
Yeah.
So when I made a call the other day, I was rerouted to the new PR firm, who got me in touch with a person that's going to be very good to talk to. So that's all fine for my job. My job is just get some information. But I do think, yeah, they'll have the focus groups. They'll have the summer charrettes of showing where things are. And, hey, yeah, you can still walk from here and you'll get there just as quickly, which gets to a little bit of the emotion issue, but also practical.
Gwen, are you persuadable?
I'm open. I'm open because I do want to have, there are certain things I would like to have that we don't have, and I do use the airport quite frequently. But I think with regard to the issue of emotion, it's important from a PR marketing messaging standpoint to address the factor, what are we losing? Oftentimes
Yeah.
people try to shift you with what you're going to gain, but we're far more emotionally connected to what we stand to lose than what we stand to gain, and they really need to address that issue.
All right, we're moving ahead. It is not breaking news that the business of television news is changing rapidly. And former network newsman and Emmy Award-winning journalist Ed Rabel says local television news across the country is a waste of your time. Rabel claims news coverage is nothing more than a daily digest of house fires, fender benders, and high school reunions, combined with too frequent and frequently unnecessary weather updates. The Rabel label for local newscasters, those who mumble the mundane, to which he adds mannequins of mendacity. Rabel was not, as far as we know, talking about Kansas City's local news on commercial stations, but do his descriptions sort of fit, John?
Well, I have to deal with the local media regularly, and so I initially would like to disagree, but truthfully, he was pretty much on target with what he said. Local TV now is basically consultant-driven. It's cookie cutter. They know the viewers like live shots, so we'll see a live shot at 10 o'clock at night outside of a school where something happened at 2 o'clock at that school. And they'll say, we're out here live. And it's like, the school's dark. What are you standing out there for? So you run into that, but consultants tell them this is what people like. People like breaking news. You get them hooked early. You do a couple of stories, you bring the weatherman on, and the weather guy says, you know, we're going to have weather tomorrow. Stay tuned. And then they go back to a couple more stories. And it's formulaic, and it seems to work, but it does lead itself to what you just
Well, John, on your website a few weeks ago, you had a very funny link to a parody newscast of how local news is done across the country, and we're going to show you just a few seconds of it. The two anchors are Hugh Cares and Amy Duplessis.
Good evening, I'm Hugh Cares.
And I'm Amy Duplessis.
This is the newscast focused on you, your opinions, your issues, your stories.
And in tonight's top story, what's up?
How was your day? Email us, text us, tweet us.
We'll be reading your responses all throughout the show.
And we mean all your responses.
And you know what people are talking about tonight?
I don't.
But you do.
Mail us, text us, tweet us.
Mail us, text us, tweet us. There is an effort, is there not, Mary, to, what was it? Mail us, text us, tweet us. An effort to get the viewer more involved with the newscasters, the news people, not necessarily the news.
Well, that's one way to put it. It's also an effort to get the demographic that they're targeting, which is 18 to probably, what, John, 35?
at the most.
At the most. Maybe 1828, to watch TV news for what? Well, one night I saw the local news where the camera was on a big screen TV, another TV, and inside that TV was a picture of a laptop with information on it. I mean, we were looking through 5 different sources of electronic information. So I am watching it less and less. I want the Royal score. I want to know what Gary Lezak thinks about the weather, and all the other weather people too. You're wonderful.
I'll tell you what Gary Lezak thinks about the weather. There's always a storm on the way.
Well, there
Gwen.
You know, when you said that the consultants tell them that we want to see a lot of live shots, and so we have this breaking news. But you know, we don't want to be duped with these where we've got breaking news. Then when you get there, it's really nothing. You know, or it's wrong. You broke the news too soon, and so therefore it's inaccurate news. And we don't want that either.
Gail, there are some very good television news reporters in Kansas City.
Actually, I was just going to pander to that point. You know, when Dave Helling, who now works for Star, was on TV, I would watch Dave Helling stuff because as a person watching city
Mike
stuff.
Mahoney,
Mike Mahoney,
Chris Katz.
obviously. You know, there are people that have the serious stuff. I mean, it's kind of like, I look at it, sorry Star, as my role at the Star, where I write about all the serious stuff. And meanwhile, what gets all the clicks on is the stupid little cat videos and all this crap that we put on the web. But people love it, and it's like, okay, great. But I'm writing for the mayor and us and the decision makers, and hopefully trying to and then you stumble across something like KCI or where people really do care about. Oh, well, I'm glad we have somebody who's serious who knows something about it. Well, that's a role that Mahoney and people like that play.
I need to add that in contrast to what you may see on some of the commercial stations, KCPT is expanding, and you wrote about this a little bit, John, on your website. There is now a desk that is focused on healthcare issues. There's a desk that is devoted to such things as education and life sciences. New people have been put on board, and there are some very good people working on some in-depth reporting. So that is what the plan is for KCPT and public
if I
television.
can mention the Pulitzer Prizes were given out in news on Monday, and there's a trend I think that we need to watch, and that is that for the first time in the history of these very prestigious awards in journalism, they gave the National Reporting Award to an online investigative reporting journalist at something called Inside Climate News, which does in-depth, and I went to their website. It's fabulous. They won the Pulitzer Prize for the first time for journalistic investigative reporting. That's the direction we're going to have to go to because the local stations cannot afford to have investigators on. But with one exception, I'll mention in the toast.
They can afford it, they just won't spend the money.
Speaking of which, when we start getting paid on Ruckus again. Don't excite that comment.
Do I look like a management person? Kansas City parents missing in action. Popular website Tony's Kansas City reports last weekend the police guided dozens of unsupervised teens away from the plaza early Sunday morning. Says the author, the sight was one of the most tragic I've seen in quite some time because there was not an adult in sight, and these kids were headed toward Troost with absolutely no parental supervision. Parents also got a strong rebuke from Gwen last week on Ruckus.
As parents, you have the primary responsibility and accountability for knowing where your children are. And it's unconscionable to read in the newspaper that someone 7 years old is on the plaza involved in a melee and their parents are nowhere to be found.
How do you think you look there, Gwen?
I think I looked a bit irritated.
Why are the parents missing in action?
You know, that's a great question, Mike. And there are parents who have to work and they have many challenges with regard to the care of their children, and you have some sympathy for that or some understanding of that. But I don't know the answer. I don't think that the city is responsible for having all of the answers either in terms of where your children are. Yeah. If you're under the age of 18 or the age of 16 and we have a curfew and you're out without parental supervision, I don't know the answer to why these parents aren't there. I know that for some, there are economic issues. I also know that there are many young people, because of the work that we do at my organization, who really are raising themselves for whatever the reasons are. And that's very, very unfortunate, which means that the state maybe needs to intervene so that these young people can be placed in the appropriate living conditions. But when it comes to, I don't understand how a 7-year-old or 14-year-old, not only on the plaza, anywhere in the city, is out after a certain hour and their parents don't know where they are.
Right.
Now, I believe that young people have a right to take advantage of the entertainment districts in the city and you know, be there at the appropriate time, and irrespective of race, because I think there's a race issue here when you see lots of black children gathered in one location that causes concern for folks, and we have to be aware of that and deal with that as well.
Yeah, but yeah, you think all of this is being exaggerated, don't you? You don't think it's as big a concern as it's being made out to be, especially with regard to the plaza?
I think it's a concern, because I wrote, my point of the column today was, I don't think these kind of incidents are going to destroy the plaza, which is what too many people think, oh, well, there are black kids there, so we're not going to go there anymore. And, you know, it's a very, very popular place. To the point about the parents, though, I mean, and I think you hit most of the high points. I mean, there are some parents where the kids run the household, so they're going to go wherever they want to. There are some parents, as you said, where they're working, you know, 2 jobs to try to hold down on a single parent. Okay, that's more excusable. But, as I wrote this morning, it's not the city's job to do. They cannot be the parents of all these kids. We can provide, the city can provide some of the late night activities, and they also have to set rules on that.
Let me say this, please. And the point being is, the fact is that there are numerous youth programs throughout the city. So when this happens, we start hearing this. There's nothing for these kids to do.
Yeah.
There's the
Gotta move on,
YMCA, there's the Boys and Girls Club. There's program after program.
We have to get rolling here because we're almost out of time. But Tony Botello on his website points out a lot of these kids aren't going to go to city-sponsored activities. They don't care anything about them.
When I was a high schooler, I didn't go to city-sponsored. We hung out. So the question is, where do they hang, and so on. But I talked to a number of friends of mine who have teenage kids who live near the plaza and so on, and who would go there often, as I do. Nobody has any good ideas that I've talked to. The only one that I think I have, the only thing I would have to offer, is I think the police department needs a little more proactive in the way they relate to the crowds on the plaza. Get a little more assertive. I think they are a little passive in their
and we'll get the answer
attitude.
from John about how to solve this problem the next time he's on the program, because now we move to Roast and Toast, where the Ruckettes speak up and speak out about people and events in the news, starting tonight with Mary.
Well, I want to toast Channel 41 KSHB Television, because they alone, among local television stations, as long as we're talking about media today, put on an hour show a couple weeks ago about the tragedy at JJ's Restaurant and the explosions on the plaza, and the really inexplicable nature of this tragedy that killed one and injured so many. And I want to toast Melissa Greenstein and the reporters. She's the executive producer of Special Investigations, who designed this hour. What they came up with was the unanswered questions that still remain. Why were people not evacuated? Why did it happen in the first place? Why wasn't the gas turned off? And why did the firefighters leave after 13 minutes? Kudos to KSHB and their staff.
Well, in light of the events in Boston today, and given my interest in the running community, this is, of course, a toast to all the first responders in Boston who helped so many people who were affected by that. And getting back to Kansas City, I know we're going to have several different running events that are going to commemorate that. The Garmin Marathon this week is going to allow some of the people who are unable to finish the Boston Marathon to actually run the last mile or so of the Garmin Marathon this weekend and get a little congratulations for doing that. I guess in the end, though, I hope we don't overreact by making running events, these tightly controlled things. They really are spontaneous events where people are celebrating being in good health.
Well, early on in the show, we talked about local TV, and I did take a few pokes at some of them. But I agree with Mary about KSHB, but I would like to toast KCPT's very own local show, which actually takes the time to deal with issues in depth. Local TV, 30 seconds is a long time. The local show on KCPT comes on every week. is able to look at issues 10, 15 minutes, which is an eternity, but that's what TV should do, and I salute KCPT.
I chose the KC Nova Project, Chief Daryl Forte and Deputy and Prosecutor Jean Peters Baker for their recent efforts to pull individuals off the street that they believe are responsible for most of the violent crimes in our community, and giving them an opportunity to cease and desist with their behavior and take advantage of programs that are there to help them. And if they choose the opposite, they guarantee that they will go at them with the full weight of the law behind them. Those are great efforts to prevent crime in Kansas City, and we salute you for that.
And finally, April is Jazz Appreciation Month, and local jazz artists are being celebrated. But I'm sure the artist would agree that fans, patrons, and benefactors also deserve appreciation and a note of thanks. These are the folks who support jazz events like the Kansas City Jazz Orchestra programs and search out the relatively few venues where live jazz is still played. From my experience, I would say the only flaw with Kansas City Jazz fans is there are just too few of them. And that's Ruckus for this week. For more local coverage, join Nick Haynes for Kansas City Week in Review Friday evening at 7:30. We're off next week, back on May 2nd with guest Ruckette Crosby Kemper. Now, on behalf of the Ruckus crew and the Ruckus staff, I'm Mike Shannon's the teleprompter. You know, if it's on there, I don't read it. I'm Mike Shannon. Thanks for watching, and good night.